Debian 14 Forky is halfway through its development process, and the release team just dropped a goal that proves the Linux ecosystem has a massive trust problem. They have officially enabled migration software to block any new packages that cannot be reproduced. This isn't just some boring technical update. It is a direct response to the fact that until now, you just had to blindly trust the person who compiled your operating system. Stay with me because I'm breaking down every detail of how this mess actually affects you later in the video. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you won't miss the daily updates like this to stay ahead of them. Without this change, there is no way to verify if the software you downloaded is actually what the developers wrote, or if someone modified it to insert malware. The core of the issue is something called deterministic compilation. Think of it like a recipe. If two different people use the same version of a compiler, the same options, and the exact same source files, the process should result in identical binary files every single time. It should be possible to reproduce every build of every package in Debian byte for byte. If the files aren't identical, it means something changed in the dark where you couldn't see it. The fact that this is only becoming a goal now in 2026 shows just how long we've been operating on nothing but faith. For years, users have been told to just trust the distributor. Back in 2012, Mark Shuttleworth, the self-appointed benevolent dictator for life of Ubuntu, even pointed out this exact problem in a blog post that has since disappeared from the live web. For over a decade, we've known that if you can't check the supply chain, you can't be sure your system is safe. Debian has been working on this since 2015. It has taken them over 10 years to get to a point where they can actually start blocking software that fails this basic safety check. This move doesn't necessarily make Debian safer overnight. It's already considered one of the most stable distros out there, but it exposes a failure in how we've been building tech. It's about infrastructure changes that make it easier to check the supply chain. It makes it possible to write software that can verify that what you're getting really is what you thought you were getting. If everything works perfectly, you won't even notice a difference. But auditing tools will finally be able to tell if a security risk has been snuck into the code. If you're tired of being told to just trust big projects while they take a decade to fix basic security holes, hit that subscribe button. We keep track of the fine print so you know when your data is actually being protected or when it's just being left to chance. The industry is finally starting to catch on, but it's moving at a snail's pace. FreeBSD 15 promised reproducible builds late last year, and NixOS Raccoon was trying to explain why this was desirable back in 2022. Even Rocky Linux has claimed it's part of their plan. But while everyone is promising and planning, Debian 14 is actually starting to block the bad stuff. It shouldn't have taken this long to realize that trust me is not a security strategy. The problem with a system that isn't reproducible is that it's cooked from the start. You have a binary file that you run on your hardware, but you have no way to prove it matches the source code. It's a massive blind spot that big tech has been comfortable with for way too long. Debian 13 came out last August, and while Debian 14 is expected in about a year, it doesn't follow a fixed schedule like the projects backed by massive corporations. That freedom allows them to push for these dull but important measures that actually protect the user instead of just hitting a marketing deadline. This shift is a total system collapse for the old way of doing things. The era of blind trust is being forced out because the security risks are just too high. When you realize that it has taken since 2015 to even get to this point, you start to see how fragile the software we use every day really is. We are finally getting the tools to verify the supply chain, but it highlights just how much we've been ignored, while the people in charge focused on features instead of fundamental safety. The fact that this is even a significant extra effort shows how messy the underlying process has been for years. But while Debian is cleaning up its own house, the way this affects the larger Linux world is where the real drama begins. The Debian project's latest Bits from the Release Team newsletter has a goal that may not sound very big, but it will mean significant extra effort in a direction that could prove to be a valuable extra security measure. This extra effort is code for fixing a broken system that has been ignored for decades. For years, the people making your software haven't had to prove that the code they show you is the same code they actually send to your computer. The release team is now using migration software to block new packages that can't be reproduced or existing packages in testing that regress in reproducibility. This is a massive failure for any developer who has been lazy with their build process. If you can't make your software build the same way twice, Debian is literally going to kick you out of the next release. It's a harsh move, but it's the only way to stop the security risk of tampered binaries. You can't just say, trust me anymore. You have to prove it with math. This is the industry trend that everyone should have followed years ago. Late last year, we noted that FreeBSD 15 now promises reproducible builds. NixOS Raccoon was looking at this in 2022, and Greg Kurtzer from Rocky Linux said it was part of their plan too. But promised and done are two different things. Debian is actually hitting the stop button on anything that doesn't meet the standard. It shows how the rest of the tech world has been comfortable living in a state of system collapse, where nobody actually knows if the software is clean or if it has been modified to insert malware. If you're tired of these projects taking 10 years to fix a hole this big, make sure you're subscribed. We're watching these slow-motion industry changes so you know exactly who is actually securing your data and who is just talking about it. The goal is deterministic compilation. In other words, if you use the same version of the same compiler with the same options, then every time you compile an identical set of source files, the process ought to result in an identical set of binary files. It sounds simple, like a grade 9 science experiment, but the reality is that software has been so messy that this was almost impossible until recently. The Reproducible Builds project has been pushing for this because without it, an automated tool can't check whether the binaries you downloaded are byte identical to the ones you could compile yourself. We've been living in a world where you just have to trust the distributor who compiled your OS. That is a terrifying amount of power to give to anyone. Even the benevolent dictator Mark Shuttleworth was talking about this in 2012. And it has taken 14 years to go from, hey, this is a problem, to actually blocking software that doesn't comply. That is a staggering failure of speed from big tech and the open source community. They've allowed a supply chain vulnerability to sit wide open while they worked on dull things that didn't actually keep you safe. Debian 14 Forky is trying to be the adult in the room. They are making it possible for software to check and verify that what you're getting really is what you thought you were getting. If it all works, you won't be able to tell any difference. But the auditing tools that protect your system will finally have a leg to stand on. It's about making the invisible parts of your computer actually accountable. But even as Debian moves forward, the timeline is still a mess. Debian 13 came out last August, and Debian 14 is still at least a year away. We are waiting until 2027 for a standard that should have been mandatory in 2010. This slow rollout proves that even when the fix is found, the way it gets delivered to you is still tied to a release schedule that is stuck in the past. This slow rollout proves that even when the fix is found, the way it gets delivered to you is still tied to a release schedule that is stuck in the past. Debian 13 came out last August, and so Debian 14 is expected in about a year, although it does not have to stick to a rigorous fixed schedule like the commercially backed projects. This lack of a hard deadline is a double-edged sword. It means they can take the time to do things right, but it also means you're left waiting while the rest of the industry remains cooked and vulnerable to supply chain attacks. The reality is that reproducible builds in Debian have been a long time coming. The Register first reported on these efforts way back in 2015. It is now 2026. That is an 11-year gap between identifying a useful security measure and actually making it a requirement for new packages. During that decade, how many security risks were actually inserted into binaries that we just couldn't verify? We don't know, because we didn't have the tools to check. The industry has been operating on a just trust us policy that has finally reached its limit. My stance on this? This move helps the friend watching this by finally giving them a way to verify their software, but the move itself is a failure of speed. We shouldn't be celebrating an 11-year development cycle for a basic trust mechanism. It exposes how slow the safe side of tech actually moves. While malware gets smarter every day, the stable operating systems are still arguing over how to make sure a compiler can output the same file twice. We also mentioned reproducible builds when we looked at NixOS Raccoon in 2022. NixOS is already a little further down the reproducibility trail, and their Flux deployment tool in 2024 aimed to deliver this same verification. Even Greg Kurtzer at Rocky Linux said this was the plan. But for the average user, Debian is the backbone. If Debian is just now cracking down on unreproducible packages, it means the foundation of the Linux world has been shaky for a long, long time. If this all works, you won't see a difference. Your computer will look the same, your apps will run the same, and the experience will feel dull. But as Liam Proven put it, that's just like Debian itself. The importance is in the supply chain verification, making sure that no one modified the code to insert malware before it hit your hard drive. It is an invisible shield that we should have had a decade ago. The era of blind trust is ending, but it's leaving a lot of questions about what else has been left unchecked in the name of stability. What do you think? Are you okay with waiting over 10 years for a security feature if it means the system stays stable? Or is this proof that the slow and steady model is actually a danger to users? Drop a comment below and let me know if you've ever actually tried to verify a binary yourself. And if you want to keep track of the next dull but important system collapse, hit that subscribe button. See you in the next one.